So we will see why you need quantum mechanics. Okay, so what are the uses of quantum mechanics? So these things we are going to learn in this part. Okay, so then in the afternoon we'll go for more concepts, new concepts. Okay, so what is mechanics? So like I will ask you, what is mechanics? You can put in the chart. What is your mechanics? And it is nothing but it is a branch of science that deals with motion. Okay, so anything in motion. Okay, so any object which is in motion, so you use mechanics to uh, describe it. Okay, so it can be anything like with any vehicle which is moving or anything like that. Okay, so again in mechanics you have two things. One is your classical, and the second one is your quantum. Okay, so uh, quantum mechanics and then classical mechanics. What is this classical mechanics? So this is sometimes also called as your Newtonian mechanics. So uh, they also call it as a Newtonian. So because most of the mechanics, your classical mechanics is based on Newton's laws of laws. Okay, like you have three different laws. So based on those laws, you can actually try to explain your motion of any object. Okay, so this is in macroscopic, or it should be in macroscopic. Okay, so this is your macroscopic, and this will be we will come to this. Okay, so later. So what is your classical mechanics? Is it deals or it explains the motion of any object. Okay, and it normally uses your Newton's laws of motion. So this can also be sometimes referred to as Newtonian mechanics. Newtonian mechanics means which can explain using your Newton's laws of motion. Okay. So, or Newton's laws. So you have three different laws. You can explain them. Okay. So, for example, if you take a car which is moving, so if you take any car which is moving, then if I want to know the speed, so how do you tell what is the speed of your car, or what is the velocity of the car? What is velocity? How do you define velocity? So, how do you define velocity of any object? This is very distance by time taken, right? So this is very elementary, right? So this is your displacement or distance traveled by displacement by time taken. Okay, so it is very straightforward. Okay, so if you take your bus from Tumkur to Bangalore, okay, so then so if I want to know the average velocity of your bus, okay, so it is the distance is 70 kilometer, and then if you take like 1.3 hours, okay, or 90 minutes, so then what you can actually get the uh, average velocity. It's not exact velocity, but at least average velocity of your bus. So if there is no interruption, if it is going with a constant speed, then you can give the actual velocity. Why I call it as a average velocity is because there may be some obstructions, so we don't know that. So it cannot be like a constant velocity. It is the average velocity. Okay, so that is the difference between your average and your actual velocity. Okay, so if you take the speed of any racing cars, so like the cars which are in racing, normally then you can take the actual velocity. So there it may you don't have much interruption, so they will almost go in a constant speed. Okay. So or if you take velocity of your rocket, so normally that can also be taken as a actual velocity. Okay. So these are some things that you can actually describe when an object is moving. So this is what we call as a classical mechanics. We use classical mechanics, and we can give the velocity or acceleration. Okay, so in the same way you can give acceleration. Okay, uh, and so on. So this also can be used for objects which are mostly visible to our eyes. Like if you take a brick I'm taking a brick and I'm allowing to fall down. So like I am in a second floor. So let us assume I'm in the second floor of a building. Okay. Then what I do, I'll just leave this brick to fall. If I know the mass, like it may be like 2 kg or something like that, then if I know the distance or the height of your building, then I can actually get the again your acceleration and all those things. Okay. So this is these things are nothing but this is your mechanics. So normally this is your classical mechanics. So which actually you can describe. So that means whatever is in human experience, so that we call it as a classical mechanics. Okay. So this is in your macroscopic level. But what happens to your atoms? So if you take atoms, so you cannot use the same what we call as the same laws to describe whatever is acting or whatever is happening in the atomic level. Atomic level means, so this is almost like 10 raised to minus 10. Okay, so meters. So whatever we are speaking here, classical mechanics, it is for macroscopic. Macroscopic means whatever is in the human experience. Okay, so whatever is in human experience, so this can be explained by using these kind of laws like your Newton laws or some other laws. Okay, so that is your classical mechanics. So sometimes this is also called as Newtonian mechanics. This is normally prior to or before your 1900. Okay, so anything before 1900, mostly your Galilean laws or Newtonian laws or any laws that were put forward, they were put forward to explain whatever is happening in the human experience. Okay, so whatever we can see, we can observe. But when it comes to atomic level or atomic particles like your electron, it can be electron or the nucleus, okay, or your atom, even if you can take atom which is having both your or maybe a group of atoms, okay, very small group of atoms, small group of atoms. Okay, so if you take these things, this is beyond our human experience. So that means we cannot actually see them. It is difficult to uh, see what is actually happening. Okay, so in that case we cannot use these Newton laws, and we cannot just tell, okay, the velocity of our atom is distance by time taken. Okay, so this becomes more complicated. So this is what we are going to learn, or we are going to see in your quantum mechanics. Okay, so the quantum mechanics is your branch of science which deals with the motion or the the behavior of atomic particles, or sometimes it's also called as subatomic. Subatomic means it can be your nuclei or your electron. So all these things would come under quantum mechanics. Okay, how these atoms are moving, how this electron is behaving. Okay, so to understand this, we are going to use our quantum mechanics. Okay, so that is what we are going to learn. Okay, so this is the main thing that we are going to learn in this course. Okay, so your unit number 3. So before this, so we will see something called as dual nature of light. So that is what you are supposed to learn. So that was the quantum mechanics. Why you need quantum mechanics? Quantum mechanics is used to study the behavior of atomic and subatomic particles. Okay, so it can be a single atom or a group of atoms, or it can be like a electron or nuclei. Okay, so how they are behaving. So to understand that, we need this quantum mechanics. Okay, so for first thing, what we'll do is we will see the wave and particle duality. So have you heard about this? So have you heard about this wave particle duality? Have you heard about this? So I will simplify it as dual nature of light. Okay, so now I think you would have heard what is this dual nature of light. What is dual nature of light? Don't know. No one knows. What is the dual nature of light?
It's a particle nature and wave nature.
Particle nature and wave nature. Okay, so that is your dual nature of light. Okay, so normally when you take a light, light is supposed to be behaving as both wave and particle. Okay, so I will just try to explain this. Okay, what is this wave and what is this particle nature? Okay, so if I want to explain something like your interference, okay, so you can take your interference or your diffraction, okay, or your polarization. So all these things, if I want to explain this or your reflection, refraction, okay, you can keep on listing them. Okay, so you can, if you want to explain these things, so normally what you do is you will consider your light to be a wave. Okay, so you take your light to be a wave, and then you explain that interference or diffraction or polarization or reflection, refraction. Okay, so I think we have already done this in case of your laser light. So if I want to say constructive interference, then what I do, I take two waves which are in phase. Okay, that means your crust and crust is in the same position, trough and trough is in the same position. Okay, so then what you do, you take that when you add up or when they interfere, superimpose or interfere, then what happens? You get addition. Okay, so in this case, when you have constructive interference, you get amplification of your light. So, but if you take one more wave which is out of phase, so like if I take like this, so then in this case, what is happening? Crust is in the place of trough, trough is in the place of crust. So in that case, what happens? You will have what we call as a destructive interference. So then your light, there is no light wave. Okay, so which is your darkness. So normally you have this dark, and then in the first case you have constructive. So when you have constructive, you have light or light amplification. So this, if I want to explain this interference or superposition of two waves, then I'm going to take the light waves as, sorry, light as waves. Okay, so this is your first wave, this is the second wave, like that. Okay, so you can have more number of waves. So this is your wave nature of light. But at the same time, if you want to explain something called as your photoelectric effect, or your if you take your photoelectric or your Crompton effect, okay. So all these things, if I want to explain, then I need to consider the same light as particle. Okay. So what is this photoelectric effect? Do you know what is the photoelectric effect? You would have learned, right? You would have learned in your PU or something like that. So what is photoelectric effect? So you take any metal. So this is your metal. So why I take metal is there are a lot of free electrons. Okay. So if you take any other thing other than a metal, then you will not have more free electrons. So in this case, there are more free electrons. So this again we'll learn what is this free electron and all in the next unit. Okay. So when you provide some energy to these electrons, like okay, like it can be in the form of any thing. So I'm going to send a photon of sufficient energy. Yes. So by the radiation of metal atoms emitted. Okay. Yes. Okay. Correct. You are correct. Okay. So light of suitable frequency hits metal surface. Electrons are ejected. Okay. Correct. So all these things are correct. Okay. So uh, So I will, this is what I am explaining. Okay? So like if you take a metal because it is having more free electrons, then I send some radiation of energy E is equal to h nu. Then what happens? This electron will be coming out. So this electron is going to be ejected. Ejected means it is going to be removed from this metal. Okay. So normally, if you take your radiation, like your light. Okay. So I'll take this as a light. So light is also a radiation, as we already saw it uh, in your lasers, right? So in lasers, we consider the light to be a radiation. So light means we were explaining this to be waves. When I want to explain your interference, diffraction, for all those things, I'm considering that light to be wave. Okay, but now if you take if you tell that you are going to use this wave to knock out an electron. What is electron? Electron has some mass. Okay, as a mass, so it is a particle. So this is like a particle. uh, your electron is a particle. So now what you are telling is you are telling you are able to remove the particle, okay, by using some radiation. But for this, like if you want to remove some brick from a wall, so if there is a wall here, then you if you want to remove one of your brick from the wall, normally what you do is you this is a brick. Brick means it has some mass, so that means it is a particle. And if I want to remove this brick, normally what I do, I use some hammer along with something else, right? So normally, if I want to remove anything with some mass, I need to use one more particle. So this is what we call as a dual nature. Okay, so even though radiation is believed to be a wave, it is also believed to be a particle. Okay, so and this is possible because of your Planck's Max Planck. So he told that every wave or every radiation is also having a particle nature associated with that. Okay, so this is your wave and nature, sorry, wave particle duality, or dual nature of light. Dual nature of light means light can behave as waves in some phenomena like your interference diffraction. The same light can behave as a particle to explain this kind of photoelectric effect and prompt time effect and so on. Okay, so in this case, what we're telling, your light is also a particle, not just wave, but it is a particle. So this is your first theory in quantum mechanics. So if you take quantum mechanics, so to explain this kind of photoelectric effect, so Max Planck, what he told is he used this uh, radiation to be a particle, not just a wave, but it is also a particle. Okay, so that is your dual nature of light. So is it clear up to this? Is it fine up to this? So the first theory is dual nature of light. So what is the meaning of dual nature of light? If you take a light, which is a radiation, it is acting as wave. So or we are assuming the light to be wave to explain this kind of phenomenon like your interference, diffraction, or even in case of your polarization. Okay, what happens in polarization? You're going to use two different waves at different angle, and then you're going to select one of the wave to come out. That is your polarization, right? So all those things, if I want to explain, so I'm using light to be traveling in wave form. Okay, but when it comes to some other phenomena like your photoelectric effect means you're sending a radiation which is nothing but your light onto a metal, and you're removing the electron. Okay, so in this case, electron is having some mass. That means electron is a particle. So you cannot just remove a particle with something else. You need to consider this radiation to be a particle. If I want to remove a particle, then I need a particle. So that is why, so, in this case, what they believe is your radiation to be a particle, not just wave, but it is a particle. That is your dual nature of light. Okay. So this is the first concept which you need to remember in your quantum mechanics. Okay. So why you need quantum mechanics and also what is dual nature of light? Okay. So now you have learned dual nature of light. So uh, I will let me just okay. So you learned about the dual nature of light. So now, if you want to go further, so the first theory that you already learned till now is your Planck's hypothesis. So normally these are the hypotheses which are put forward. Okay, that means they again they are going to go back and then they try it. Okay, so this is your Planck's hypothesis. Okay, so what is Planck's hypothesis? It says that uh, your radiation is actually having a specific energy E is equal to h nu. Okay, so then this is actually can be considered as a particle. Okay, so then later on your Einstein and everyone they came and they gave some theory for that. Okay, so but initially who explained photoelectric effect was your mostly your Max Planck. Okay, so he explained your photoelectric effect and hence he used this particle wave and particle dual nature, okay, or duality. So this is your first theory which was put forward by your in your quantum mechanics. So now you can ask, what is this quantum mechanics? Why you get this word quantum? Okay, cool. So the quantum is because of your this specific packet of energy. Okay, so as your Max Planck gave this equation, E is equal to h nu, which is nothing but E is equal to hc by lambda. We have already seen this. So if I take a monochromatic light, then what happens? This is going to be a constant. So this we call it as a quanta. Quanta is nothing but it is a packet of specific energy of packet. Oh, sorry, it is if you are going to consider the radiation to be is a packet of constant energy. So that is what we call as quantum, and then you get the word of quantum mechanics. Okay, so this is your history of your quantum mechanics, and you started how they built this quantum mechanics is they put forward some theories, and then they started doing some experiment. Okay, so this Max Planck hypothesis, it was an experiment, and then what happened? Your Einstein came and he gave a theory for that. Okay, so like that, normally if you take any quantum mechanics, it is just we are going to learn more about theory, and we will see whether it is valid or not. So if you take any science, not just your quantum mechanics, if you take any science, science is valid until and unless it is proved wrong. Okay, so that is what you need to remember. Okay, so that means so Einstein he comes and tells, okay, this is your particle wave particle dual nature, but someone comes and proves that is this is wrong, then till it is proved wrong, then it is true. Okay, so that is the science. So this is what we are going to see in most of our quantum mechanics. Okay, so we'll see a lot of different theories like Planck's theory, and then you have de Broglie theory, you have Heisenberg theory, you have Schrodinger theory. So we have so many different kinds of theories, and what you do is you are going to learn one by one, and you will see whether it is valid or not. Okay, so in case of Planck's theory, it is valid because you could explain diffraction and all those things using wave nature. You could explain Crompton effect, photoelectric effect by using particle nature. So this theory is valid because only then you can explain all the or some of the at least some of the phenomenon which is occurring. Okay, so as you can already see, so these theories are uh, used to explain atomic particles or subatomic particles. Okay, atomic or subatomic particles. So this is not they didn't develop to this to to explain any kind of macroscopic object, like your asteroid or rocket or something like that. So if I want to explain the motion of an asteroid, or a motion of a planet, or motion of Earth, motion of any stars, then I normally use classical mechanics. Okay, so because those are whatever is uh, within our experience, like your human experience. Okay, so now whatever we are learning, so the quantum mechanics is mainly developed to explain the uh, phenomenon. That is, phenomenon means anything, like it may be a motion, it can be uh, something like energy, or energy of an atom. Okay, so how to get the energy of an atom, how to get the energy of a electron, how to get probability of finding an atom in a place. Okay, so all those things we are going to use quantum mechanics. Okay, so first is your Planck's hypothesis. So what Planck's hypothesis says is, if you take light, which is normally believed to be a wave, it can also be considered as a particle in some circumstances, or in some, to explain some phenomena. Okay, so that is your Planck's hypothesis. Okay, so next you have hypothesis of de Broglie. Okay, so what is de Broglie? So have you heard about de Broglie hypothesis? So have you heard about this de Broglie hypothesis or not? So okay, fine. So what Planck's gave is, every like radiation, like your light, which normally behaves as wave, it can also behave as particle. Okay, but what de Broglie gave, so he is Louis de Broglie, he was a French scientist. What he told is, if your this theory is true, that means if you're assuming the wave to be behaving as particle, then he told, so every particle will also behave as wave. Okay, so it is little bit it is nothing but, it is the reverse of what your Planck's gave. Okay, so Planck's gave that the wave is behaving as particle, but now your de Broglie, what he said is, every particle will also behave as wave, because your nature loves symmetry. Okay, so that is what he told. Okay, so normally nature loves symmetry. So that means if uh, if your wave can behave as particle, then every particle should also behave as wave. So to explain this, or to prove this, what he told is, what he took is, he took example of a motion of a atom. Okay, so I will explain you a little bit in a different way, because it is not easy to understand. So if you take your particle means it should have some mass, right? So it has some mass, only then I can tell it is a particle or it is a matter. Okay, so if not, it cannot be considered as a particle. So for this, I will take one brick. Okay, so of 1 kg. If I throw this brick, what will happen? So let us assume I'm standing here and I'm going to just throw it. Okay, so let us, if I throw it, then normally what happens? It will go up, and then after some point, what happens? It will start. You will get effect of your gravity, and it will start down. Okay, so this means it has a trajectory, right? So if you throw a brick of 1 kg mass, then what happens? Your brick will go up and then it will come down. So this is what we call as a trajectory. Trajectory means, now I can use classical mechanics to explain the velocity, acceleration, all those things. Okay, so this I can explain using your classical mechanics. But now, if I replace this brick by paper, okay, so this is your brick. Now, if I replace that by a paper, so single page of paper, okay, page. What is the mass of your page? Sorry, or the weight of the page? It may be some micrograms. Okay, so 10 raised to or milligrams. So micro or milligram. So in that case, if I throw the paper, will it go in the same trajectory? So you would have played with rockets, right? So you would have made a rocket from your page and then you throw it, or you just give it some motion. So in that case, will it still go in this trajectory? Maybe initially it may go in the trajectory, but then what happens? It will start having wobbling. Wobbling means it will start moving in waveform, right? It will start going in waves. So that means you're actually throwing a particle which is having less mass. So now if you take a mass of an atom, uh, so now if I take atom, which is much smaller, so then your the mass of atom will be like in picograms or nanograms. Okay, so nanograms are picograms. That means 10 raised to minus 12 or minus 10 or minus 11. Okay, so in that case, what happens? You can assume that this atom will have more wave form. Okay, so this is the atom which has some mass. The mass of the atom is something like picogram or nanograms. So in that case, what happens? The motion of the atom will be more like a wave, not just like a trajectory. If I take a brick would normally go as a trajectory. It will go in a straight line. Maybe it will go up and then it will come down. It is like a curve, but it's fine. Like it is like a trajectory. But if I start reducing the mass of your object or your particle, like if I take page may be having like milli or micrograms. So in that case, what happens? It will start having this wave nature when it is moving. So now if I further decrease the weight of your atom or of your particle, like if I take atom and if I throw the atom, or if I take electron and if I throw the electron, then what happens? It will always move in more pronounced waveform. That is what de Broglie told. So if you take any particle, when it is moving, what happens? It will always have wave nature with its motion. Okay, so that is the de Broglie hypothesis. Then he gave an equation lambda is equal to h by p. Okay, so this is nothing but this is called as the de Broglie equation. So what is this de Broglie equation is? Let me just write it in new one. Okay, so what is your de Broglie hypothesis? It says that every particle in motion will have wave nature associated with that. Okay, with its motion. Okay. So and then he gave this equation lambda is equal to h by p. What is this relation? It gives a relation between the wave and particle nature. So if you take lambda is nothing but it is the distance between two crust or two trough. So that is your wave. The left hand side is wave. And then what is on the right hand side? Right hand side you have a particle because you're bringing in p is nothing but m into p. That means it has some mass. Mass means it is a particle. So he gave a physical or he gave an equation which would relate the particle and wave. And this is what we call as a de Broglie equation. Okay, so the de Broglie equation is nothing but lambda is equal to h by p or h by mv. And this gives the relation between wave and particle. Okay, so this is your de Broglie hypothesis. What is de Broglie hypothesis? If your so according to de Broglie, every particle will have wave nature with motion. So when a particle is moving, it is moving in a wave form. Okay, so this is your de Broglie hypothesis. Then I will just slightly go on and then I will explain you one more few more things. Then I'm going to stop it. Okay. Okay. So so you have to remember this de Broglie equation, because this is important for in terms of your exam and all. Okay, so de Broglie, BROGLI, okay, de Broglie hypothesis. Okay, so you have to remember the statement and then you have to remember the equation. Okay, so what is the equation? Lambda is equal to h by m v or h by t. So now what you can do is, this is your de Broglie equation for any particle. Okay, any atomic particle or any particle, you can use this equation and you can give a relation between the wave nature and the particle nature of the your any particle. Okay, so this is your relation. Now what you are going to do is, we are going to take this relation and we are going to slightly modify it. So by using your kinetic energy, how do you define your kinetic energy? What is the equation for kinetic energy? E is equal to half m v square, right? So that is the equation for your kinetic energy. Now what I will do, multiply by and divide by m. Okay, so then what happens? E is equal to m square v square by 2m. Okay, so that is your what we call as the, this is the equation for your kinetic energy. Then if I take this numerator, is nothing but p square by 2m. Okay, so that is your p. So now if I take p will be equal to root of 2me, right? So I can replace this in your first equation. Then what happens? Lambda is h by p, or lambda can be equal to h by root of 2me. Okay, so this is the equation of de Broglie in terms of kinetic energy of a particle. So the same equation I'm going to just use it in kinetic energy. Okay, just a minute. So this is your equation. Okay, so for your same de Broglie equation, but in terms of kinetic energy. So now if I take any particle, like if I take an electron. Okay, just so now what I will do, I will take an electron or any charged particle. It can be electron, it can be any charged particle, and if I allow it to move in a potential field. Potential field means I'm going to take some two plates and I'm going to connect this under into a power supply. Okay, so positive to first plate and negative to second plate. Then what happens, if I don't switch on this power supply, this particle is going to move with certain direction. Let us assume it is going like that. Okay, but if I uh, give some external potential, depending on the strength of this potential, like E times V, if I'm putting E is equal to E times V, then what happens? This potential is going to act on this motion of your electron, right? So this then it will change the kinetic energy of your electron. So you can use that equation. Okay, so like your third equation is lambda is equal to h by p, and I'm going to use this equation, h by root of 2m capital E is the energy of kinetic energy of the particle. No, so now if I'm going to have an influence of E times P, then if you take any particle, any charged particle in motion, and then if you apply some potential, external potential, then what happens? It will have a slightly different kinetic energy, which is nothing but lambda is equal to h by 2m E into V. Okay, so you will use these three equations in solving some problems. Okay, so but you need to remember these three equations. Okay, so what is de Broglie hypothesis and what are the three different de Broglie equations? Okay, so what is de Broglie hypothesis? Every particle in motion will have wave nature associated with that. Okay, and you are going to give this equation lambda is equal to h by mv, which is, this is nothing but it is your de Broglie wavelength. So lambda is nothing but de Broglie wavelength. Okay. So lambda is given as h by p or h by m times p. So you're actually giving lambda is nothing but it is wave nature, and p is nothing but it is your particle nature. So you're going to give a relation between wave and particle nature. So if you take Heisenberg, what Heisenberg, what your Max Planck. Okay, so if you take Max Planck, he told every wave, like your radiation, is having a particle nature. But what de Broglie is telling is he's the reverse. Okay, so he's telling every particle will have wave nature. Okay, so these are like similar hypothesis. But what your Max Planck gave is, he gave a relation for quanta. Quanta means any packet of energy with a specific packet of energy. Okay, any wave with specific packet of energy. So he gave E is equal to h nu. It was just a equation for quanta. But what de Broglie gave is, he gave the relation between wave and particle. Okay, so he gave lambda is equal to h by p. Lambda is the de Broglie wavelength. De Broglie wavelength is defined as h by p. So how do you get this wavelength is, if you take any particle in motion, like if I take an electron which is in motion, so it is going in wave, it is traveling in wave, and then you can describe this lambda as the distance between two crust or two troughs. Okay, so that is your de Broglie wavelength. Then what you do, you use the same de Broglie equation, and you can get two different equations. So the first equation is the wavelength in terms of kinetic energy of the particle. So which is you use E is equal to half mv square, then you multiply and divide by m. So then you have m square v square by 2m. So this is nothing but m square v square is nothing but mv is p square by 2m. Or p is, you cross multiply this, then you will have root of 2m e. So lambda is equal to h by p, or lambda is equal to h by root of 2m e, because I am substituting for p here. So this is the first equation. You have to remember this equation. And then the second equation is, if I take any particle like your electron, and if it is under the influence of a external potential field, then I substitute that E by E times V, which is your applied potential field. Okay, so you have to remember this lambda is equal to h by root of 2m into E times V. So this is the same equation, the previous equation, but you are going to substitute for the kinetic energy which is acting on this, or the external energy which is acting on the particle. Okay, so these are the this is about introduction for your quantum mechanics. So you have to know what is why you need quantum mechanics. You need quantum mechanics to explain the behavior of any atomic particle. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop it here, and then we will again meet at 3:15. Okay, so I think you have class from 2 to 3. So after that, 2 to 3, around 3:15, we will start our quantum mechanics. Okay, we'll continue with the quantum mechanics. So you have any doubt up to this? This is all basic. I will again cover this in the afternoon, and then we'll go to the new concept. Okay. So is it fine? Is it okay?